Welcome back to Daily Decode, the channel where we dig deep, break it all down, and bring you the truth behind the headlines. No spin, no fluff, just the facts that matter. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because you won't want to miss a single moment of what's coming next. In what can only be described as a political spectacle of epic proportions, America watched live as Karoline Leavitt, former Trump campaign press secretary and now a frequent conservative commentator, completely lost her composure on national television after being confronted by none other than Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the topic that lit the fuse. Former President Donald Trump's health, a subject long speculated about but rarely addressed head-on with such precision and poise. Crockett not only exposed what many have suspected, but did so with such surgical articulation that even seasoned pundits were left speechless. It all unfolded on a primetime political panel hosted by one of the major networks, where Leavitt and Crockett were seated alongside two other guests to debate the fitness of the presidential candidates heading into 2024. At first, the conversation was standard fare talking points, predictable jabs, and the usual round of defensive maneuvers. But everything changed when the conversation pivoted toward the stamina and mental acuity of the candidates, especially Trump. Leavitt, clearly prepared to attack President Biden's age and speech patterns, launched into a scathing critique. She cited Biden's gaffes, his walking posture, his momentary confusions. Her voice grew sharper as she pushed the narrative that Biden, in her words, doesn't know where he is half the time. It was a line we've heard before, recycled for the base, designed to trigger applause on right-wing platforms. But what Karoline didn't anticipate was Jasmine Crockett stepping in, not with emotion or anger, but with a file. That's right, Crockett came armed with documentation, video receipts, public statements, and what she called an outline of the biggest gaslight in modern political history. She waited patiently, didn't interrupt, and allowed Leavitt to dig herself deeper. Then, calm and measured, Crockett began. "Let me get this straight," she said, turning toward Leavitt with that signature blend of poise and steel. "You're here to question the mental fitness of Joe Biden, and yet you want to pretend that Donald Trump is somehow the poster child for vitality and coherence. Girl, please." The panel chuckled nervously, but Crockett was far from done. She brought up Trump's slurred speeches, citing multiple instances. From the awkward United States blunder to the time he appeared confused about what century it was. She pointed to the unsteady walking, particularly the infamous West Point ramp moment. And then she landed the punchline, the Walter Reed Hospital visit that Trump's team continues to downplay to this day. That emergency trip to Walter Reed, in 2019, we still don't have answers, Crockett said. Was it a stroke? Was it something else? You want to talk transparencies? Where's Trump's health record? Where's the neurological exam? We've seen Biden's doctor issue full reports. Where's Trump's? Or are we just supposed to take your word for it while he's out here mistaking Nikki Haley for Nancy Pelosi and rambling about sharks and batteries? At that moment, Leavitt's entire demeanor shifted. What started as smug confidence dissolved into visible irritation. She tried to cut in, accusing Crockett of lying, of deflecting, but Crockett wasn't fazed. She held her ground, reminded the viewers of Trump's own words, how he bragged about passing a cognitive test meant for dementia patients and acted like naming person, woman, man, camera, TV was a sign of genius. You don't get to throw stones from a glass hospital bed, Crockett said, her voice now commanding the room. We've got a man who called himself a stable genius while tweeting nuclear threats at 3 a.m. and mistaking hurricanes for nuclear bomb targets. If that's your standard for health, then honey, we need a new dictionary. By this point, Leavitt was red in the face, visibly flustered, raising her voice to interrupt. But it only made her look more unhinged. The moderator attempted to regain control, but Crockett calmly handed over a stack of publicly available documentation clips, medical timelines, news reports. One piece stood out. Crockett referenced a book by a former Trump White House aide, who hinted that Trump's 2019 hospital visit was far more serious than initially reported. She read directly from the text, quoting unnamed officials who feared a neurological episode. She didn't claim it as fact, but she made a compelling case that these questions were not only fair, they were overdue. Meanwhile, Leavitt couldn't recover. She began repeating talking points, flinging insults, and at one point even tried to deflect by bringing up Hunter Biden. That was the moment the audience collectively sighed. Crockett pounced on it. "This isn't about Hunter Biden," she said, eyes locked on the camera. "This is about a man running for the highest office in the land. who refuses to release full health disclosures while claiming he's the most mentally sharp person to ever live. You want us to believe that, but won't show us receipts. That's not strength, that's fear. Social media exploded within minutes. Clips of the exchange went viral, racking up millions of views in hours. Hashtags like #Crockett exposes Trump and #Karoline meltdown were trending across platforms. Even traditionally conservative pundits were forced to admit that Crockett had made valid points. But perhaps the most damning moment came when a medical expert, watching live, tweeted that Trump's 2019 visit matched the urgency protocol for suspected transient ischemic attacks, mini-strokes, that often go underreported. The White House never confirmed it, of course, but the mystery and lack of transparency only added fuel to the fire. Leavitt later appeared on another network, trying to spin the exchange as a setup, accusing the moderators of bias and claiming Crockett had coordinated an ambush. But by then, the damage was done. Her credibility had taken a hit. Crockett, on the other hand, emerged as a voice of reason, logic, and fact-based critique, unshaken, and in the eyes of many, victorious. This moment wasn't just a debate gone wrong for Karoline Leavitt, it was a cultural turning point. For too long, the conversation around Trump's health has been swept under the rug, buried under theatrics and bluster. But Crockett brought it back into the spotlight. Not with conspiracy theories, but with questions backed by record and reason. And perhaps what made it so powerful was the contrast. Crockett didn't yell, she didn't mock, she didn't need to. Her words were sharper than any insult. Her facts did the heavy lifting. It was a masterclass in political confrontation, a demonstration that truth, when delivered calmly and confidently, can cut deeper than any viral meme. Political analysts are already calling it one of the defining moments of this election cycle. Not because it was dramatic, but because it forced the conversation to shift. If we're going to talk about age, health, and cognitive fitness, we have to talk about all the candidates, not just the one the right wants to target. That's the standard, that's the bar, and Crockett just raised it. The aftermath continues to ripple. The Trump campaign has gone into full damage control, releasing vague statements about Trump's extraordinary health, but still not providing the detailed medical records that voters deserve. Meanwhile, Crockett's profile is rising. She's being hailed as the new face of fearless political discourse, a woman who speaks truth to power and doesn't flinch under fire. And perhaps the most telling reaction came not from pundits or analysts, but from viewers themselves. Thousands of comments flooded social media, praising Crockett for saying what so many have been thinking but were too afraid to articulate. They thanked her for refusing to be gaslit, for refusing to let Trump's contradictions go unchallenged, and for refusing to let Leavitt spin the narrative without receipts. This wasn't just about one exchange on television. It was about a culture shift, it was about accountability, and it was about time. As this election season heats up, expect more moments like this, more confrontations, more fact checks, and hopefully, more leaders like Jasmine Crockett who come prepared, stay composed, and refuse to let the truth be buried under the weight of spectacle. That's what democracy demands. And that's what Daily Decode is here to spotlight. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with your friends. We break down the noise and decode the drama, so you don't have to. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and stay decoding. This is Daily Decode, signing off.